This is me waiting for the bus. I'll go my wallets are sitting here together. And apparently this battery didn't have much power in it because I'm going dead. It's kind of on the street though. So yeah, I think that's 71B. It's coming from. And there's somebody coughing in the back. This is packed.
My mom thinks I'm sexy.
Does she? But don't even tell me that's a... What the freak? What do you mean no battery power? Okay, man, well this is like smoke room. This is the scummiest place on earth. This is where people hang out. This is Coke machine.
What's wrong?
This is Joe.
I'm burned out.
No, I can't. How you doing?
I went to go see Filter last night. We never got around to it.
I went to that Rocky Horror Picture Show. Hey, did they like kick you out? Did they find you?
Yeah,
Or?
they're fucking with me, right? Yeah, they didn't do that.
Who?
Let me see the tapes that go on that thing.
Woo, look at that. Sandy Fernando. Hello, man.
Hey guys, I
Sandy
saw
Fernando.
Harry Smith, that
Look
guy
at-
from
Hey.
CBS this morning. I saw him.
Sexually satisfied.
I was like, holy shit.
All right.
Paul Zahn was like,
Hey, Amanda. Hey, Amanda.
shut up.
Look at Mandy Jaw. I love you, Mandy Jaw.
Roshi Duche Latoria, pick your head right on.
Hold on.
Liz,
It's
Jen, and Aaron. We don't know who the hell is going on.
I'm gonna call her Joe.
This isn't even my
No, it's
notebook.
Joe.
Whose notebook is this?
Hey, kids.
It is Victoria. Conrad.
Yes.
Latoria?
Coach.
Your notebook.
Is this mine?
Connor. Yours?
What?
Connor, it's her.
Roshi Duche Latoria.
Hey.
No, she's not.
Hey, it was Roshi Duche.
Hey. Ooh. Ah. Ooh. Ay. Ay.
Let's do something sexy.
I heard.
This is a cool camera.
Hi, Connor.
Oh, where'd Mr. Hudson go?
The
The 22-year-old that looks like he's 65. No, I can't be filmed. The government's after me.
They're pigeons.
The pigeons are after me for that time back in 60s. That should be Cody.
Come here.
That dude.
Come here.
What is the tape with the line through it? I want to find maybe.
balls.
What's like all the. Should this be on it?
There's rap music on there.
No, don't put rap music in. What did
Don't
these
think
little
of
guys
Joe when
do?
you
Why
hear
was it there?
You really should give it a chance. It's really good.
No, not the rap.
And I guess I'm a bit of a generation, and yet what riches we inherited from these plain people.
I'm Scotch and Dutch and German, and my last name is Ferruggio, which I got by marrying a nice boy from Brooklyn. But we do have Sinead O'Connor from Galway, Alan Kelly from Dublin, Jack Gibbons, a local boy, Conor McGuigan, and Jack McGuigan. Yes, father and son.
The health of the salmon to you. A long life, a full heart, and a wet mouth. Here's to you and yours, and to mine and ours. And if mine and ours ever come across you and yours, I hope you and yours will do as much for mine and ours as mine and ours have done for you and yours.
May you have food and raiment, a soft pillow for your head. May you be 40 years in heaven before the devil knows you're dead.
Here's health and long life.
To your enemy's enemies.
as anuas degan on. A quid grog locus and crown qui curdat claw. The shruhan shanma, snazig a suak sav, and duvan alla de vunish, and close of clay.
For Robert Og Caroon, blessings on your head in a glowing heap forever. Beloved, as you grip the great wooden carrying harp, with a stream of polished flame profound and sweet, you have banished the spider's webs out of all our ears.
The Irish language was, until late in the first half of the 19th century, the language of the majority of the population. Despite periodic efforts to encourage its use, it has lost ground steadily to English and is now spoken as an everyday language in limited areas, mainly along the western seaboard, known collectively as the Gaeltacht. The total number of native speakers living in the Gaeltacht areas is currently estimated at 55,000.
Tame, meaning the great wave, a poem by Moya Cannon. The unexpected tide, the great wave, uncontained, breasts the rock, overwhelms the heart in spring or winter. Surfacing from a fading language, the word comes when needed. A dark sound surges and ebbs, its accuracy steadying the heart. Certain kernels of sound reverberate like seasoned timber, unmuted truths of a people's winters, stirring of 1,000 different springs. There are small, unassailable words that diminish Caesars, territories of the voice that intimate across death and generation how a secret was imparted. That first articulation, when the vowel was caught between strong and tender consonant, when someone in anguish made a green and mortal sound that lived until now, a testimony to waves succumbed to and survived.
These fashions on the plain of Ever.
By Corrigine Hakev, who's a Dominican priest from Cashel County.
Ira. Isgach mo no a walk stars go hard listening. Curtaration scarf is garter a stuck to bok, not club and launch static. It's a crow of a alcohol for vrosh lated. Is cur the lagme class and flosh sailshe, mo a gach jock ig far and schmail verla. Is gan scut ignac le fard and doive eggshe, al hugamok is berlat the hog elske.
These fashions on the plain of Ever make me sick. Beggar women's sons with curling locks, white cuffs around their wrists, and fancy rings, like Ireland's one-time princes of Dalgash. Slavies and their sons starched to the chin, garters upon them and their scarves thrown back, tobacco pipe in jaw at full blow, and bracelets on their claws at every joint. The trick of this false world has laid me low. Servants in every home with grimy English, but no regard for one of the poet class, save out and take your precious Gaelic with you.
In Brian Friel's play Translations, it is 1833, and the British have decided to rename all of the place names, the Gaelic place names in the country of Ireland. And they have sent teams composed of a British soldier and, in some cases, an Irish assistant, in order to go about, look at the maps, find the old names filled with folk legends and tale, and change them to English. In this scene, we find Yoland, the British officer, and Owen, his Irish assistant, proceeding to attempt to map an area around Ballybeg. And Yoland is busy doing his job of anglicizing each place name, either phonetically or by translating the meaning of the words. And he's sitting on the floor, eyes closed as though dreaming of something else, while Owen is pronouncing and then translating place names off a large map. And they're speaking English as they try to name a little beach where a stream meets the sea. Owen speaks its Irish name.
Bunna Howard.
Punna.
That's terrible, George.
I know, I'm sorry. Say it again.
Bunna Howard.
Bunna Abham.
That's better. Bun is the Irish name for bottom, and Owl means river. So it's literally the mouth of the river.
Let's leave it alone. There's no English equivalent for a sound like that.
What is it called in the church registry?
Only now does Yoland open his eyes.
Let's see, Ben Owen.
That's wrong. The list of freeholders calls it Owen Moor. That's completely wrong. Owen Moor is the big river at the west end of the parish. And in the grand jury's list it's called God, Bin Owen. Wherever they got that. I suppose we could anglicise to Bun Owen, but somehow that's neither fish nor flesh.
I give up.
Back to first principles. What are we trying to do?
Good question.
We are trying to denominate and at the same time describe the tiny area of soggy, rocky, sandy ground where that little stream enters the sea, an area known locally as Bun na Hown. Burnfoot. What about Burnfoot?
Good, Roland. Burnfoot's good.
George, my name isn't...
B-U-R-N-F-O-O-T.
They continue that way for a while, and eventually Owen's father Hugh comes downstairs, jaunty and alert, but reaching for a bottle of hachim to fortify himself for a journey to the parish priests to obtain a testimonial for one of his prospective employers. He converses with Hugh in English, and Yoland imparts to the old man some of his feeling of exclusion from this society, whose very language he admires from his little contact with it. Hugh replies in customarily flowery manner, but in English.
Indeed, Lieutenant, a rich language, a rich literature. You'll find, sir, that certain cultures expend on their vocabularies and syntax acquisitive energies and ostentations entirely lacking in their material lives. I suppose you could call us a spiritual people.
It's not that nonsense, Father.
Nonsense? What nonsense?
Do you know where the priest lives?
Well, at this much more, at near
Oh, he
near...
doesn't. Listen to Muck, the Fort of Pigs has become Swinefort. And to get to Swinefort, you pass through Greencastle and Fairhead and Strandhill and Gurt and White Plains. And the new school isn't at Paul McGuire, it's at Sheep's Rock. Will you be able to find your way?
Yes, it is a rich language, Lieutenant, full of the mythologies of fantasy and hope and self-deception. Syntax opulent with tomorrows. It is our response to mud cabins and a diet of potatoes, or on our only method of replying to inevitabilities. To return briefly to that other matter, Lieutenant, I understand your sense of exclusion, of being cut off from a life here, and I trust you will find access to us with my son's help. But remember that words are signals, counters. They are not immortal, and it can happen. To use an image you'll understand, it can happen that a civilization can be imprisoned in the linguistic contour which no longer matches the landscape of fact. Gentlemen.
Broach by Seamus Haney. Riverbank, the long rigs ending in broad, docking in a canopied pad down to the ford. The garden mold bruised easily. The shower gathering in your heel mark was the black O in Broach. Its low tattoo among the windy boar trees and rhubarb blades ended almost suddenly, like that last GH the strangers found difficult to manage.
In the following poem, there are a few Irish words that may help you understand what the speaker is going through. Uvaltuck means black-locked, and Alling is beautiful. West Limerick voice talked velvet in the house. Her hair was black as the glossy fireplace, wearing with grace her Sunday night dance best. She cut the froth from glasses with a knife and hammered golden whiskies on the bar, and her mountainy body tripped the gentle mechanism of verse. The minute interlock of word and word began, the rhythm formed. I sunk my hands into tradition, sifting the centuries for words. This quiet excitement was not new. Emotion challenged me to make it sayable. The cliches came at first, like matchsticks snapping from the world of work. Manla, Save, Uvaltuck, Alling, Queen. They came like gray slabs of slate breaking from an ancient quarry. Manla, Save, du Voltag, Alling, Queen, slowly vaulting down the dark, unused escarpments. Manla, Save, du Voltag, Alling, Queen, crashing on the cogs, splinters like axe heads, damaging the wheels, clogging the intricate machine. Manla, Save, du Voltag, Alling, Queen. Then Pegasus pulled up. The girth broke, and I was flung back on the gravel of Anglo-Saxon. What was I doing with these foreign words? I, the polisher of the complex claws, wizard of grasses, and warlock of birds, midnight oiled in the metric laws.
Are so pretty, I first set my eyes on sweet Molly Malone. As she wheeled her wheelbarrow through the streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. She was a fishmonger, and sure 'twas no wonder, for so were her father and mother before. Now their ghosts wheel their barrows through the streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. She died of a fever, no one could save her. That was the end of sweet Molly Malone. Now her ghost wheels her barrow through the streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh.
5 years ago. The subject is a relative of mine, first cousin of my mother. And in County Mayo, he and I would be referred to as five of kin. But for the past 30 years, visiting this part of County Mayo, we've gotten to know one another. Quite a gentleman. In the poem, there's one word, sugan, which is a straw rope. You would take straw and grate it, and depending on the size, the strength that they needed. But Michael, in 1906, won the All-Ireland Irish-speaking, inter-family Irish-speaking contest in Dublin with his father and his brother Patrick. Spent his life as a fisherman and never married. And I think that's why his longevity is such. He's now 95. I wrote this for his 90th birthday. He turned 95 in September. I called it. He has 5 books also in Belfield at University College Dublin. He's a folklorist, and people took his Irish stories and copied them down before they would be lost. So this was a poem I wrote for him. Thoughts from Abroad, on the occasion of the 90th anniversary of the birth of Michael Naughton, September 6, 1990. We danced at raffles in Baralty and fished all night from Downpatrick to Benwee Head with nets you showed me how to weave. The hairs on our heads stood up in dreadful fright as we walked before the ghost just above the bridge below in Glenlassara. And with a flail you taught me to make, we threshed the grain on the floor of your kitchen. Whether it's the fairy wizardry or something in the blood, Michael, I don't know, but like a solitary haycock, I am tied to this place by the sugans of your imagination. You are the beauty of the North Mayo coast. You are a constantly changing landscape. You are the secret hidden below in Caja Fields. There will come another fine day, surely, and until then, I celebrate this day with the wish that there is smoke always in your chimney.
Wolves, E.M. Forster, May Sarton, and Carson McCullers, to name a few. She was primarily a novelist, but she also wrote short stories. And this is the beginning of one of those stories entitled A Day in the Dark. Coming into Moor over the bridge, you may see a terrace of houses by the river. They are to the left of the bridge, below it. Their narrow height and faded air of importance make them seem to mark the approach to some larger town. The 6 dwellings unite into one frontage, a color-washed apricot years ago. They face north. Their lower sash windows, front steps, and fan-lit front doors are screened by lime trees, making for privacy. There are area railings. Between them and the water runs a road with a parapet which comes to its end opposite the last house. On the other side of the bridge, picturesquely rises a ruined castle, more likely to catch the tourist's eye. Woods, from which the river emerges, go back deeply behind the ruin. On clear days, there is a backdrop of Irish blue mountains. Otherwise, Moore has little to show. The little place prospers, a market town with a square on a main road. The hotel is ample, cheerful, and does business. Moreover, Moore is and has been for ages a milling town. Obsolete stone buildings follow you some way along the river valley as, having passed through Moore, you pursue your road. The flower-white modern mills elsewhere hum. Round the square, shops and pubs are of many colors. In the main, Moore looks like a chalk drawing.
The Lost Heifer by Austin Clarke, a symbolic poem about Ireland, is probably known by most Irish teenagers because it appears on their national leaving certificate exam about every other year, according to Sinead. The Lost Heifer.
When the black herds of the rain were grazing in the gap of the pure cold wind, and the watery hazes of the hazel brought her into my mind, I thought of the last honey by the water that no hive can find. Brightness was drenching through the branches when she wandered again, turning the silver out of dark grasses where the skylark had lain, and her voice coming softly over the meadow was the mist becoming the rain. Lobed like a full sail strung between the shafts in the furrow, the horses strained at his clicking tongue, an expert. He would set the wing and fit the bright steel-pointed sock. The sod rolled over without breaking. At the head rig, with a single pluck of reins, the sweating team turned round and back into the land. His eye narrowed and angled at the ground, mapping the furrow exactly. I stumbled in his hobnailed wake, fell sometimes on the polished sod. Sometimes he rode me on his back, dipping and rising to his plod. I wanted to grow up and plow, to close one eye, stiff my arm. All I ever did was follow in his broad shadow round the farm. I was a nuisance, tripping, falling, yapping always. But today, it is my father who keeps stumbling behind me and will not go away.
This is from the last of the name.
I hardly noticed her going. The strong sun heat of afternoon had taken full possession and made all things still. All sound and movement had gone into the deep shadows to sleep. I dozed in company with the trees until one sudden movement nearby broke the calm. I saw a rabbit and it was acting in a queer way. It ran around in circles and the erratic orbits grew smaller and smaller until it just ran up and down a few yards either way. Then I saw another movement in the grass, an oiled, keen movement showing flashes of rust-brown fur, and I understood why the rabbit was acting so oddly. The stoat was trailing by scent, although only 10 yards away, following the aimless circle of fear. The rabbit could not escape because the stoat's scent was spun around it, etched indelibly on the still air by its own guideless movement. It might as well have been shut in a cage, for it was powerless to break away to safety through the invisible web of dread. I stood up. The stoat was very near and the rabbit was jerking about as if in a fit, small whimpering noises rasping in its throat. I knew the sequence. The squeals would increase to screams and then die away to snoring whimpers, and the stoat would feed on the warm arterial blood, receiving the fear-soaked heart gush in its own throat. Maybe it was because my heart went out to the little beast in its grievous terror. Maybe I felt its fear akin to something similar in myself. Whatever bond had quickly tied us, the rabbit hopped stiffly towards me, almost spent. I watched its coming, surprised and forgetting the trailing killer. It came right up to my feet and snuggled against my shoes. The stoat was on the last hot scent. It saw the huddled form and leaped towards it with awkward-like springs, undulating death, moving swift as swift water. I snatched for the rabbit's ears, and the stoat blundered against my hand. Instinctively, I snatched up the rabbit with the stoat hanging momentarily from my finger. It dropped off, chattering with disappointment, tail bristling and eyes glowing. I made a kick at it, afraid of it, afraid even to touch it with my shoe. "Go away," I shouted. "Go away, you crazy, wicked bastard." It ran around me twice, full of the hot scent and puzzle that I had not led to a kill. Then it slipped away into the grass. The rabbit lay in my arms, the long ears close to its neck. It might die, I thought, die from terror, unscathed as it is. I held it in my arms, sucking my finger and thinking. Soon I forgot about it altogether, all but its terror. I was just conscious of its heart under my fingers, conscious of the swift heart. Lifting up my head, I looked around. The silver lake below me was serene and dappled cloud shadows. About me, the lush undergrowth clung to the shade. The wild flowers I should have named drooped in the heat. The tall beeches planted 200 years before stood in straight, immobile lines, waiting with terrible patience for their seasonal thaw. The winding carriage track trebled its length in curves around an edge of an inlet without thought for economy of the cheap labor of 100 semi-slaves, now under the earth they shoveled but did not own. Myself and a rabbit, looking down on that majestic landscape, on all the thick, heavy beauty of a year's closing. Myself and a rabbit, fear-stricken by every mock shadow of the day's designing, jumping nervously and apologetically at the bark of every Mongol that lived by a law of instinctive distrust. The rabbit moved and brought me back. It was more peaceful. I walked down to the cottage, across the lawn, and deep into the hazel thickets until I found a quiet place speckled with green sunlight. There, I released the animal. It crouched close to the earth. Going softly downwind, I watched, but it did not move. It may die, I thought, just like that, and become a cold, tight ball of fur. When I clapped my hands, it paid no heed, and I could not watch it anymore. As I went back to the cottage, I thought about it and became irritated with it. It was a silly animal. It was safe now and free. Tonight, it might be the same or another stoat, but today it was safe and free. Outside, the skiffs of wind crackled patches of the lake's surface, leaving islands of calm, dark water between. The tall bulrushes and reeds swayed over gracefully, the varnished green of the rushes catching the slanting sun on their plump, rounded stems. 10 high curlews skied their way through the cooling air, heading westwards for the rich, ripe ooze of the marshes into which they would plunge their curved bills with relish, casting abroad their liquid cry, which was the sound of their shapen flight. The breeze followed them, growing stronger and erasing all the calm, dark patches, leapt among the bulrushes, raced over the hazels, and the trees whispered to the lake below.
Samuel.
Dublin can be heaven with coffee at 11 and a stroll down Stephen's Green. There's no need to worry, there's no need to hurry, you're a king and the lady's a queen. Grafton Street's a wonderland, there's magic in the air, there's diamonds in the lady's eyes and gold dust in her hair. So if you don't believe me, come and meet me there in Dublin on a sunny summer's morning.
For Ireland's wandering jurists were first set down in parchment in the 7th century AD, using the newly developed written Irish language and continued in use until the beginning of the 17th century.
Speech is given to three: to the historian poet for the narration and relating of tales, to the poet seer for praise and satire, and to the brehon for giving judgment.
For the best arable land, the price is 24 cows. The price for dry, coarse land is 12 dry cows.
The husband who through listlessness does not go to his wife's bed must pay a fine.
If the chip of wood from the carpenter's axe hits a bystander, the carpenter is exempt from liability, unless he deliberately aimed the chip at the bystander.
The poet who overcharges for a poem shall be stripped of half his rank in society.
If a youth incites a pig by shouting at it for sport, and the pig charges at idlers in the farmyard, the pig is exempt from the liability for injuries.
Whoever comes to your door, you must feed him or care for him with no questions asked.
Beyond in Giberon, for Michael Narkton. There's a man over beyond in Giberon, and those times that I spent there, on my oath, the wind screamed and ran around the house like a cross child in the shop. The weather is fierce, said he, and his gale-force laughter whirled in fairy rings of color, beyond the skies, fields, and seas, textured colors, soft as the air on Nolan's whistle, wild as the decorated notes on O'Conning's pipes. And in the reflections of the shadows from his fire, an ancient music echoed and fixed upon my mind the appearances of mountains and rivers. Many times have I traveled the road from Ballycastle to Belderrick, and if ever I stopped to gaze and write a verse or two in praise of Caja or the stags, I cannot say. For they are just whispers of nervous altar boys, pale words in the powerful presence of the man I know beyond in Giberon.
The Fiddler of Dooney by William Butler Yeats. When I play on my fiddle in Dooney, folk dance like a wave of the sea. My cousin is a priest in Kilvarnet, my brother in Mopperbuie. I passed my brother and cousin, they read in their books of prayer. I read in my book of songs I bought at the Sligo Fair. When we come at the end of time to Peter sitting in state, he will smile on the three old spirits that call me first through the gate. For the good are always the merry, save by an evil chance. And the merry love to fiddle, and the merry love to dance. And when the folk there spy me, they will all come up to me with, "Here is the Fiddler of Dooney," and dance like a wave of the sea.
This is a short story called The Magic Fiddle by Kevin Danaher. There was an old belief that if you found a briar rooted at both ends, you could use it to work a spell to obtain magic powers. Come and play for the King of France. The rake had nothing against that, and he set out for France with the gentleman, and for 20 years he played the same tune every night at the court of the king. And nobody grew tired of the tune. In fact, they were more eager to hear it as time went on. And it was noted that no other person could play the one-string fiddle or even learn the tune, even though all the great musicians of France tried their best to do it. One night, when the whole of the French court was fast asleep, except for the guards at the gates, they were all woken up by a twang of music as loud as a clap of thunder. They left their heads singing for a minute. And when they came to themselves and searched the palace to see what was the cause of it, they found the Rake O'Neill dead in his bed, and the fiddle, which he had always had hanging over his bed at night, broken into fragments on the floor.
1625 to 1698. O'Bruder is the first of the well-known 17th century poets to try to live completely out of verse in the manner of the medieval professional poets. He was born in Barrymore, County Cork, and spent much of his adult life in Limerick, supported by patrons such as the Fitzgeralds. But by the year 1674, he appears to have been reduced to laboring in the fields. He ended his life in misery.
Servishach Sherga Igar Shonach says. Servishach Sherga Igar Shonach says. Detic Shin is Eber Iete in Scoran Fecht. Vera Shiver Degel e gan Lone Tarlar. An Delavine gan Dergli nar Orma Heart. Da reckon ye is a Feligani of the York Yacht. Is Bert Antigua Legfredish in Scotia Cost. O Keshnif she, Gavergling is born a gar, on Stelagi, nor Legari, Neglora Iva. Mergina Verbaha, Igon Kjol Macab, the Helig Shin, the Gredamin, Zaborsha Amok. Ke Caleb Reeve and Pedigree, Mar Ogres Rucht, the Bavyogan D, the Merashi, the Ghost of Cop. Relgin and Elgin, Knock Dordan Amon, the Sheshkagani, the Vecamid, the Roadway One. On Vena D, Ostavian D, Gajon the Drave, San Lechin Shiash Galerga, She Marnota Cock.
And the translation is, a shrewish, barren, bony, nosy servant. A shrewish, barren, bony, nosy servant refused me when my throat was parched in crisis. May a phantom fly her starving over the sea. A bloodless midget that wouldn't attend my thirst. If I cursed her crime and herself, she'd learn a lesson. The couple she serves would give me a cask on credit, but she growled at me in anger and the beer nearby. May the King of Glory not leave her long at her barrels. A rusty little boiling with a musicless mouth. She hurled me out with insults through the porch. The law requires that I gloss over her pedigree. But little of the harm if she bore a cat to a ghost. She's a club-footed slut, and not a woman at all. With the barrenest face you would meet on the open road, and certain to be a fool to the end of the world. May she drop her dung down stupidly into the porridge.
The pattern of our life was leisure. The man who made time made plenty of it, my father would say. Breakfast, which started at 8 a.m. for the smaller children going off to school, always began with oaten porridge and milk straight from the cow, and still warm. Some took their porridge lightly salted as it came from the pot. Some sprinkled soft brown sugar on it, while the smaller ones made a hole in the center and dropped a spoonful of honey into it. The porridge was followed by boiled eggs that had been gathered the night before. All the eggs had to be brown because nobody in our house would touch a white-shelled egg, a senseless family prejudice. A great cake of brown bread stood at either end of the table, and the one with the strongest arms sliced for the eaters. We had our own butter and our own honey, and all this was washed down by enormous draughts of strong, sweet tea. On Thursday night, the bread band called. That was the only time we ever saw shop bread. It was a great treat to us to see a white pan loaf, and every Friday morning we had real toast made from the baker's bread. On all Sundays and feast days, we had bacon and eggs. But no matter what else we had, the day always started with porridge. We all firmly believed that porridge put the roses in our cheeks and the curls in our hair. Even my brothers, who were all outrageously spoiled by mother, ate it to make them good footballers.
Death of an Irish Woman by Michael Hartnett. Ignorant in the sense she ate monotonous food and thought the world was flat, and pagan in the sense she knew the things that moved all night were neither dogs nor cats, but pukas and dark-faced men. She nevertheless had fierce pride, but sentenced in the end to eat thin, diminishing porridge in a stone-cold kitchen. She clenched her brittle hands around a world she could not understand.
I promise. Angela, room's warm now, quite warm. The times are flying, mind you. Oh, God, have you gone to sleep again? Please, Miss Nightingale, please have some regard for others.
Did you find it?
Find what? Find what?
My lipstick you were looking for.
No, I did. Must be in there somewhere.
I remember I had it when you had me perched on your lap, remember?
Oh, don't be reminding me of those things now. No, I don't remember. Oh, for goodness sakes, get up.
All right. Put on a glass of wine, I'll be out in a minute.
Not a single thought has she for what might happen to me if discovery came. Utterly abandoned to her own interests? Oh, gentle St. Camus Solanus.